Now, I have to say, there's been a dynamic that I found kind of funny so far doing the devotions for this week. I haven't exactly been looking at the timestamp, but my notes, I have less notes in front of me than I usually do, and I feel like I'm going longer. Maybe being a little more unscripted isn't quite as good a thing. Anyways, Numbers chapter 6, the Nazarite vow, and this blessing that you keep hearing me give. And I've talked about this blessing actually in specific in one of these devotionals before we started the going through the scriptures. But I'll just make a few comments related to it, but more focus on this Nazarite vow. This vow was a voluntary sign of dedication. In the ancient world, again, the tribes of Israel, you had the Levites who were particularly dedicated to God. But if you were one of the other 12 tribes, or even if you were a Levite, maybe most weren't part of the high priestly family, you could take this vow as an additional sign of dedication. It was a way of expressing gratitude to God. And this Nazarite vow, where there was this voluntary laying down of, not going to cut hair, not going to drink alcohol of any kind, which again, in ancient culture was more along the lines of you would usually water down. Alcohol was kind of consumed almost more as a disinfectant agent than kind of in our culture. Usually, it's kind of to either on the extreme get drunk, but it's just more of kind of a social habit kind of idea. Just it's not for sanitary purposes or health purposes. Um, Anyways, that's a side issue. Um, the vow, the Nazarite vow, was a vow you could make for a period of time or for a lifetime of just wanting to give some things up as an expression of gratitude to God. And particularly for non Levites who just wouldn't be as engaged in the tabernacle at the temple later on. Um, Samson is our most famous example in the Old Testament. In fact, I think might be the only Nazarite named individually. He was a Nazarite by birth because it was kind of a vow, as when we get to Judges, we'll look at that, that his parents made as being led by God in relation to a calling on Samson's life. And Samson is a complicated figure, and we'll talk more about him when we get to his account in Judges. But again, just this idea that people could, under this old covenant, have ways they could bring sacrifices of thanks, but they could also enter into seasons of abstaining from certain things to kind of, in a sense, say, God, thank you. I'm going to restrict myself here. So I just use that as a springboard or use this as just a way to say, God, I just really appreciate all you are and all that you've done. Again, it goes against our, say, Canadian cultural values. And sometimes maybe we don't talk about this enough within the church, especially as evangelicals. As I'm saying this, from a uh, other traditions, they've entered into the season of Lent, where there's this practice of giving up. Some people give up chocolate, some people give up social media. It's a type of fasting, which I have talked a little bit about. um, but again, the idea of giving up in order to prepare or in order to give thanks to God doesn't fit our, I'll say, wider North American culture of God blesses, God's giving me stuff, I get more, and then I give thanks to God. Anyways, the priestly blessing, you've heard me say it a lot. It's just kind of came as something for me of, well, I'd say conviction of just wanting to use some more biblical language and reminding us of the concepts that are there. And this priestly blessing of numbers, and I don't mean to be or come across as legalistic about it. It's not how I feel about it. It's just wanting to express and resonate what God's heart is. And there is something in, for me, this chapter 6 priestly blessing that would have been stated over and over again. It would have just been so well known to Jesus, to the Jewish nation before and following Jesus, because may the Lord bless you. It's just asking for God's gift, God's kind of abundance to come upon you. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. It's God who is our protection. We don't have control. And we get into all sorts of trouble because we think we can control life. We don't. We need God to keep us in good times or bad times. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. There's this relational sense of God's face being towards you, right? That talking face to face, that relational part. May you just sense God's relational closeness is part of what's being pictured there. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. Grace, that God is giving us this gift of himself. And grace, as when we get to the New Testament or in the Greek word, the New Testament word for grace has this idea of reciprocity, where God has given us this amazing gift, and the proper response is to give loyalty back, because we know we've received far more than what we've ever deserved. And so we give our loyalty because that's what we can give amongst whatever else we might be able to do. And may we know God's peace. Hebrew word is shalom. And it's not just peace as in an absence of conflict. It's peace, that a wholeness of life. It's not as much a buzzword today. Maybe about 10 years ago, holistic. Our culture has this. We want holistic medicine. We want holistic treatment, and we don't just want like one aspect. We want the whole person to be treated or to be respected, or whatever the case or the context of that word holistic. Well, here it's shalom, is God's holistic peace that may every aspect of your life know God's peace. And so I'm just going to close with it. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you today. May the Lord be gracious to you. And would you know his peace? God bless.